class action lawsuit against Frito-Lay for marketing genetically modified snacks as all natural. And this made me sick because I actually eat one of these brands. Frito-Lay is the subject of a new class action lawsuit that pegs the company for illegally marketing its snack products, which are loaded with GM ingredients, as being all natural. Represented by Milberg LLP of Los Angeles, Julie Gingo of Richmond, California, recently filed a class action lawsuit against Frito-Lay, alleging that the snack products are fraudulently labeled. Frito-Lay Sun Chips, Tostitos products are made with GM vegetable oils and potentially even GM corn. But they're both labeled as being all natural. But GMO products are not all natural ingredients and are in fact admittedly synthetic, which makes the products that any product that contains them unnatural. And that's even by their own definition. You can go to the Monsanto website. The company defines GMO on its website as food with genetic makeup altered to exhibit traits that are not naturally theirs. So they even use the term unnatural. So kudos to Julie. Hopefully they do some of that, and I will not be eating Sun Chips ever again. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. You keep learning this stuff, you keep educating yourself, and eventually you say no, you draw your line in the sand. Which leads us to our final article of the evening. Busted. Scientists leave out data to produce bogus findings. The BMJ, which is the British Medical Journal, is sounding the alarm that data reported by scientists is too often not the truth because researchers leave out inconvenient data. Kind of like the inconvenient truth with Al Gore. Turns out that this is no once-in-a-while kind of problem either. The BMJ claims a large proportion of the evidence from human trials is unreported, and much of what is reported is done so inadequately. And then it goes into a little more commentary. Big Pharma's pills and potions are often pushed based on studies that simply ignore and leave out major data about what is really discovered about a medication lacking of benefits, potential dangerous side effects, and more. And two additional studies show the requirements for mandatory trial registration and timely sharing of results are poorly followed, if at all. And you know why this happens? I'm going to tell you why this happens. It's because most of these studies are paid for by the drug companies. And if you're a company that's receiving money from a drug company to do different types of studies, what are you going to do if you want to keep that contract? Well, you're going to get the results that they ask for. That's how it's done in this country. It's done with money. That's how elections are stolen, like what we saw in Iowa. Go to a final bit here. We have a couple letters. Actually, these emails were on my chair this morning. And if you want to send us letters, you can email me, which is robd@infowars.com, or write us at infowars.com, P.O. Box 19549, Austin, Texas 78760. First one is from Eugene. And he says, "Hi, greetings from Israel. We listen to your show here, and also let me tell you, it is fascinating. Keep up the good work, Eugene." And a final one here from Jeff. "I am a soldier stationed overseas, and I am very grateful for everything the InfoWars staff is doing. I just want you to know there are young service members here that take their oath to the Constitution very seriously." That's a good thing to hear. "We did not sign away our rights. Dissent is patriotism. Thank you for all the work that you put into bringing out the truth to the American people, and know that you have support with many of us in uniform." So please feel free to write us tips, suggestions, anything you'd like, and we'll read it on the air every once in a while as we get some in. These just happened to be on my desk this morning. Alex told me I was doing the news, so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to show a couple of these letters to the people out there, and that they do come in. And I think that was interesting. One from Israel, one from a soldier stationed overseas. InfoWarsNews.com is where you get all this information if you're watching us on YouTube right now. Please consider becoming a member. We have a 15-day free trial coming up. We got Alex Jones with Edward T. Haslam. I'm Rob Dew signing off. Thank you very much for watching.
If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the InfoWars store at InfoWars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe InfoWars t-shirts. We've got the incredible Pro Pure gravity-fed filters available at InfoWars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there. Wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at Infowars.com today. The water filters, the canteens. It's all there. Infowars.com. And we are back. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday, 5th of January, 2012 edition. Wow, we're almost through the first week of 2012. Amazing. I want to thank Rob Dew for doing the news portion of InfoWars Nightly News tonight. And I'll have a comment on the TSA and its armed ID checkpoint in Florida at the end of the interview we're about to do. Now, a few years ago, I read the intriguing book, Dr. Mary's Monkey. And a lot of this is original research, but some of it I had actually seen in other government documents and research that I'd separately looked at. So it's a very, very credible book. And the author, the foreword is written by, of course, investigative journalist Jim Marrs. But the author lives in New Orleans, and I guess that's why he took an interest in the 1964 murder of a nationally known cancer researcher. And so that sets the stage in this book. Now, this is just a 20-minute interview tonight. But I want to get Edward T. Haslam, the author of Dr. Mary's Monkey, back on the syndicated radio show sometime in the next few weeks to really break this down. Because what reminded me of this book and made me pull it off the bookshelf and reread parts of it again was a few weeks ago, we all saw the leader of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, come out and say that Fidel Castro had told him, look out, they'll give you cancer. And I had read about programs to try to develop fast-acting cancers to go after people like Fidel Castro in Cuba. And now we've got other leaders of Latin American countries coming down with cancer. And so it's become a big debate in Latin America and worldwide. Hey, are they being given weaponized cancer? So one of the leading researchers into this area is Edward T. Haslam, author of Dr. Mary's Monkey. And by the way, it's put out by a great publisher, Trine Day. If you want to find out more, look him up online, but it's also in quite a few bookstores and obviously on Amazon. But here's the man himself. Great to have you with us. What got you onto the path of this, and boil down the book for us?
Well, Alex, I'm from New Orleans, and my father was a doctor at Tulane Medical School. And one of his best friends, Dr. Mary Sherman, was murdered. So the book is first and foremost an investigation into her murder. And the deeper I got into this, the more I realized that she was an expert in cancer and in radiation. And she worked for Dr. Alton Ochsner, who was involved with the framing of Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. And I heard rumors way back in the 1960s that David Ferry, who Jim Garrison was pursuing on the JFK assassination, had an underground medical laboratory with this Dr. Mary Sherman. And what I knew that others did not know was that Mary Sherman was world-class expert. And so you have this weird connection of world-class expert and Looney Tune political right-winger. And that's a dangerous combination of events. So I started looking into it, and I realized that the entire story around Mary Sherman's murder had been faked, because what happened to her was never told to the public. And she got her arm blown off by a linear particle accelerator, which they were using. That's a radioactive piece of equipment, which they were using to mutate monkey viruses. And the reason they were doing this originally was because 200 million doses of the polio vaccine that had been distributed to the American public in the 1950s and 60s was contaminated with a cancer-causing virus by the name of SV40. And they originally were looking for a vaccine to try to stop this cancer, which is today causing a cancer epidemic in America and elsewhere. And right when they were doing that, that's when the Russian missiles come into Cuba. And New Orleans, a lot of the economy in New Orleans was disrupted by that embargo of Cuba and the sugar and all that other stuff. And the threat of Castro's taking this revolution to the rest of Latin America and spreading it, it threatened the entire system of cheap labor and coffee beans and bananas and all that stuff that was coming into New Orleans. So the decision was made in the spring of 1963 to weaponize the monkey viruses that they were researching in this secret facility. This is like a medical Manhattan project hidden on U.S. government property in uptown New Orleans. And it's located right down the street from the personal residence, the guy that used to be the president of the American Cancer Society, and right down the other street is Lee Harvey Oswald, who's part of this project. He's like a courier runner. And then they bring in this woman who's an expert. I mean, she's very young at the time, but she's an expert in handling cancer-causing viruses. And we know about her training and all that. And they spend the summer weaponizing this. They test it on a prisoner, several prisoners, in fact. The prisoner dies in 28 days, and that's when Lee takes off from Mexico City to bring the weapon down there so they can try to smuggle it into Cuba and kill Fidel Castro. Of course, we also know that Jack Ruby said that he was injected with cancer, and just like the prisoner died in 28 days, Jack Ruby dies 28 days after he's diagnosed with cancer. And Jack Ruby said he was injected. So the ability for them to use this as a political weapon is very real, and it was established a long time ago. And in the 60s, we were told viruses couldn't cause cancer, but I can show you a 1959 Time magazine article where they're talking about cancer-causing viruses and the ability to come up with vaccines. And today we have the HPV vaccine, which is intended to prevent a cancer-causing virus. So they can no longer say there are no cancer-causing viruses because they're out there marketing them.
Sure, I've seen Rockefeller Foundation documents in the 20s and 30s where the Rockefellers were looking at most cancer being viral. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, these people have been obsessed with this forever. But you mentioned Dr. Henneman in a separate report from PBS Boston. He's interviewed and makes jokes about everybody getting cancer from the shots, like it's very funny. Have you ever seen that clip?
Yeah, that's Maurice Hilleman. He's being interviewed by Dr. Shorter, who's the medical history guy up at the University of Toronto.
That's right, Hilleman. I was saying Henneman, yes.
Yeah, and it's weird humor, but it's very real that they knew that the polio vaccine that we took over to Russia was full of this. See, when they made this vaccine, they grew it on monkey kidneys. And they got out all of the viruses that were in the monkey's kidneys, and all those viruses got into the polio vaccine. And the problem was they were caging monkeys from different continents together. So the Asian monkey was also cross-infected with viruses from the African monkey. So when they started zapping this stuff with radiation to cure it, they were hitting both the SV40, which was the Asian monkey's virus, and in that same concoction was SIV, which is the simian immunodeficiency virus, which is the ancestor to the AIDS virus.
Wow, this is just bombshell. And for those that are new viewers, I hope they research what you're saying, because everything you're talking about, I've separately seen. I mean, you're telling the truth. It's just, this is so incredible. And to go back to the fact that your father actually knew and had worked with this lady, and I guess you began to investigate the death itself, and then that's what brought you into all of this. And that's similar to my story, just looking into politics. And then I began to research things, and it just led me to the conspiratorial view, not because I'm a conspiracy theorist, but because we do have these cabals operating. Now, going back, you have quite a few documents in your book from Jim Garrison and his investigation. He was able to end up getting some government documents that they didn't want him to have. Break down some of those.
Well, Jim Garrison came to the conclusion finally that Lee Oswald was a undercover agent who had penetrated the plot to kill Kennedy. That's the same conclusion that we come to, and that Judith is involved with. Garrison did discover up in Clinton, Louisiana, that Oswald was up there with Clay Shaw, and the heart of Garrison's case was the connection between Oswald and Clay Shaw. And Clay Shaw said, I didn't know the guy, and he lied in court, and the federal government wouldn't let Garrison pursue it. But what they were doing up in Clinton, Louisiana, and Clinton and Jackson, which is right next door to Clinton, that's where they were testing the biological weapon on a prisoner that was being brought over from Angola Penitentiary, which is right down the road. And all that happened, they thought they were going to be rendezvousing with these people in a hot summer afternoon in August in Louisiana, and